So in this lecture, we're going to talk about managing server lifecycle using Node Manager. So WebLogic comes with a utility called Node Manager that's used to remotely control WebLogic servers. It's not required for you to configure and set up Node Manager, but it's certainly very convenient. So this is something that comes with WebLogic, and you can configure it to control startup and shutdown of your WebLogic servers. So some fundamental features of Node Manager: you can use it to start up, shut down, and restart the admin server. You can also use it to start up, shut down, suspend, and restart managed servers as well. And you can also configure it to restart failed servers. And that's actually optional. You can actually configure Node Manager to not restart a failed server or attempt to restart a failed server X number of times. And so Node Manager also plays a critical role in the whole server migration process. Node Manager is needed in order to bring up a failed managed server on a remote machine. So in order to do any whole server configuration and testing, you need Node Manager running. So WebLogic comes with two different implementations of Node Manager. There's a Java version and a script version of Node Manager. The Java version of Node Manager runs as a separate JVM process. And this is separate from any running WebLogic servers. Now, it's recommended that you configure Node Manager to run as a service, either in initd or in Windows as a service. And WebLogic does come with a bat file that you can run in Windows to install it as a service. And the benefit of that is that when you start up your server, Node Manager is automatically started when that server boots up. And you can then further Node Manager to auto start servers as well. So you really could have your entire environment started on server boot if you need to. The script-based version of Node Manager uses SSH to remotely access servers and execute startup scripts on those servers. So this is the less commonly used version of Node Manager. To some people, it may be simpler to configure. However, the Java-based version of Node Manager is far more secure than the script-based version. So in some environments, you may not have SSH enabled to prevent remote login to those application servers. Java-based Node Manager can be configured to use SSL over T3 or HTTP, so you're not actually remotely logging into a server. You're connecting Node Manager directly to an admin server or a WebLogic server over secure channels. So here's an overview of a typical Node Manager architecture. So in this diagram, we have three machines, A, B, and C. In each machine, we'll have a running Node Manager. And the Node Manager on a particular machine is responsible for controlling the servers that are on that machine. So for instance, the Node Manager on machine A is responsible for managing the admin server. And likewise on machine B and C, the Node Managers on those machines are responsible for their respective managed servers. So server lifecycle can be controlled through three different mechanisms. You can use WebLogic scripting tool. You can use JMX. So in Java code, you can write JMX code to control startup and shutdown. And you can use the admin console. So I can log into the admin console and start a server, stop a server, suspend a server. And you can also actually interface directly with Node Manager using WebLogic scripting tool. You connect to it like you would with an admin server. And once you've connected to a running Node Manager, you can then issue commands to start up and shut down WebLogic servers. So the process for starting a managed server looks much like this. So let's say that you wanted to start managed server 1 from the admin console. So from within the admin console, you can issue a command to start managed server 1. And that command is sent to the admin server. And from the admin server will invoke Node Manager on machine B. Node Manager on machine B will issue a command to start managed server 1. Once managed server 1 boots up, it connects to the admin server to fetch the latest configuration files. So if you made any changes to managed server 1 via the admin console while managed server 1 was offline, those changes would then be downloaded to managed server 1 the next time it started up. And so once those changes are fetched from the admin server, they're stored in its own local configuration file. And that's how remote starting of a managed server works. So to configure Node Manager, there are four main configuration files. There's nodemanager.properties, which is the general configuration file for Node Manager. And that's the one we're going to focus on mostly when we configure Node Manager. It defines properties like listen address, port number, whether or not Node Manager is listening on a secure socket, what startup and shutdown scripts to use for starting managed servers, and the like. Node Manager.domains contains a list of domains that Node Manager is responsible for managing. And when you create a domain using the configuration wizard, it'll automatically put an entry in this domain file. Now, the entry is simply a fully qualified path to the domain home directory. Then there's the nm password properties file. This defines the username and password for Node Manager. And this is encrypted. This is much like the boot.properties, which is used to authenticate a managed server on boot up. And that's really it for Node Manager. It's not that complicated. Lab exercise number 12, we'll go over Node Manager and configuring Node Manager to start our cluster members in our WebLogic server domain.